Muscular and skeletal. Control of muscle contraction. Muscle contraction can be looked upon using two variables, length and tension. Isometric is where, if the muscle tension changes, but the length of the muscle stays the same. Isotonic is if the muscle length changes, but the muscle tension stays the same. However, if the muscle length shortens, it becomes concentric. If the muscle length lengthens, it becomes eccentric. The Audiopedia 2016. Muscle types. There is 3 types of muscle tissue, which are cardiac, smooth, and skeletal. The cardiac muscle cells are based in the heart, in the walls of the heart. These are involuntary control, which means only the brain has control of it, due to them being important. Smooth muscle fibres are based in the walls of hollow visceral organs, so the stomach, intestines, and blood vessels, with exception from the heart though, however, and are involuntary. Skeletal muscle fibres take place where the muscles are attached to the skeleton and are voluntary. Visceral muscles, which is another word for smooth muscles, are the weakest out of all the muscle tissue. Smooth muscles are in charge of making organs contract so that substance can travel through the organ. The cardiac muscle has a job to make sure that the blood is being pumped around the body. This is involuntary, as I have previously mentioned, but hormones and signals from the brain can change the rate of contraction. The cardiac cells are X or Y shaped cells which are connected together by intercalated discs. Skeletal muscles are voluntary, the only voluntary muscle tissue in the human body. Skeletal muscles contract to allow these movements. The function of skeletal muscle is to contract to move parts of the body closer to the bone that the muscle is attached to. Skeletal muscle cells can change to long or straight fibres. Innerby 2018. The sliding filament theory. This theory explains how muscles contract to make force. Actin and myosin filaments within the muscle fibres join to make cross bridges and slide part one another, labelling a contraction. For a contraction to happen, there has to be a stimulation of the muscles in the form of an impulse from a motor neuron, which is the nerve that connects to the muscle. The individual motor neuron plus the muscle fibres which it stimulates is called a motor unit. The motor and plate is also known as neuromuscular junction, which is the junction of the motor neurons, axon, and the muscle fibres it stimulates. When an impulse reaches the muscle fibres of a motor unit, it stimulates a reaction between the actin and the myosin filaments, which results in the start of a contraction and sliding filament theory. The sliding filament theory of muscle contractions can be broken down in 4 stages: muscle activation, muscle contraction, recharging, and relaxation. Muscle activation is the motor nerve is where the motor nerve stimulates an action potential, so an impulse, to pass down a neuron to the neuromuscular junction. This stimulates the sarcoplasm reticulum to place calcium into the muscle cell. Muscle contraction. Calcium travels into the muscle binding with troponin, which allows actin and myosin to bind. The actin and myosin cross bridges bind and contract using ATP as energy. Recharging. ATP is the resynthesis allowing actin and myosin to keep their strong binding state. Relaxation happens when stimulation of the nerve stops. Calcium is then pumped back into the sarcoplasm reticulum, breaking the link between actin and myosin. Actin and myosin return to their unbound state, meaning that the muscle can relax. PT Direct 2018. Tendon and muscle histology. A tendon is a tough band of fibrous connective tissue which normally connects muscle to bone. Tendons are similar to ligaments and are both made of collagen. Tendons consist of dense, regular connective tissue. Healthy tendons are parallel arrays of collagen fibers packed closely together. They are attached to bone via sharpies. Fibers, skeletal muscles are mainly responsible for the movement of the skeleton. However, it is also found in organs such as the globe of the eye and the tongue. It is a voluntary muscle. Skeletal muscles are split into two fibre types, fast twitch and slow twitch. Fast twitch is where the muscle contracts more quickly due to the myosin. Slow twitch relies on aerobic metabolism and contract slower. Stretch shortening cycle. The stretch shortening cycle is known as the pre-stretch or counter movement action. The pre-stretch lets to create more force and more faster. According to Science for Sports, athletes have been shown to jump 2 to 4 centimetres higher during the counter movement jump than they can a squat jump. The reason being is the counter movement jump includes a pre-stretch dropping action where a squat jump is done from static position. The pre-stretch or counter movement action is performed in 3 stages: eccentric phase, amortization, phase, and concentric phase. So this image shows an example. Muscle contraction types. There are 3 different muscle contraction types: concentric, eccentric, and isometric. Centric shorten a muscle, eccentric lengthen the muscle, and isometric keeps the muscles the same. Concentric muscles. A contraction is when the length of the muscle shortens when undergoing tension. For example, when picking up a curl bar and begin a bicep curl. The length of your bicep muscle shorten and your hands start down by your sides and they end up with your hands by your shoulders. The bicep muscle shorten when completing this motion. Eccentric muscle. The contraction is when the length of the muscle lengthens when undergoing tension. This can take place in 2 ways, voluntary or involuntary. Using the bicep curl as an example, once the first part of the bicep curl is done and the elbows are flexed and your hands are holding onto the curl bar up by your shoulders, the weight is then returned to the waist. This is a smooth and controlled action where the muscle biceps act to decelerate the elbow joints at the end of the movement. That is an example of a voluntary contraction. An example of an involuntary action is when the weight or resistance you want to lift or move is too heavy or strong for the muscles to be able to do. An isometric muscle contraction is where the length of the muscle doesn't change when undergoing tension. For example, when taking 20 pounds of weight and performing a bicep curl and hold a position halfway between the repetition for 10 seconds, the length of the muscle does not change during that time, yet the force is still there. Dr. Larry Van Such, 2018. Ligament and cartilage histology. There are 3 types of cartilage: hyaline, fibro, and elastic. Hyaline cartilage has widely fine collagen fibres. Hyaline is also mostly found in the ribs, nose, larynx, and trachea. Fibro cartilage is the strongest type of cartilage and has thick layers of dense collagen fibres. This type of cartilage normally has a transitional layer between hyaline cartilage and tendon or ligaments. Elastic cartilage gives strength and remains the shape of a certain structure, for example, the external ear. Steve Paxton, 2018. Bone growth and development. Long bones continue to lengthen until an individual hits puberty. As well as this, they also increase in width. Lengthening of long bones. Chondrocytes are the epiphyseal slide of the plate divide. One cell stays undifferentiated near the epiphysis, and one cell moves towards the diaphysis. The cell that gets pushed away from the epiphysis mature and are destroyed by clarification. Because of this, cartilage is replaced with bone on the diaphyseal side of the plate, causing the bone to lengthen. Long bones stop growing around the age of 18 for women and 21 for men. Bone remodeling and repair. Bone renewal continues after birth and until adulthood. Bone remodeling is the replacement of old bone tissue by new bone tissue. Normal bone growth requires vitamin D, C and A, as well as minerals like calcium, phosphorus and magnesium. Hormones such as parathyroid hormone, growth hormone and calcitonin are also needed for proper bone growth and maintenance. Approximately 5 to 7% of mass are recycled each week. Some areas of the bone are replaced sooner than others. Bones that are in the head and femur can be fully replaced every 6 months, but bones that are along the shaft take much longer. Thickening of long bones. Oppositional growth is the increase in the diameter of the bone by the bony tissue at the surface of bones. Lumen 2018. Joint types and classifications. A joint is also known as articulation or articular surface. It is a connection that happens between bone in the skeletal system. Fibrous joints are connected by dense, tough connective tissue that is rich in collagen fibers. These are fixed or immovable joints are typically interlooped with irregular edges. There is 3 types of fibrous joints, which are the cranium syndesmoses, which are found between long bones, and gomphoses, which are found at the articulation between teeth and the sockets of the mandible. Cartilaginous joints are connected by fibrocartilage or hyaline cartilage. More movement is in these types of joints than there is in the fibrous joints. These are split into primary and secondary cartilaginous joints. The epiphyseal, so the growth epiphyseal, such as growth plates, are examples of synchondrosis. Symphyses are found between the manubrium and sternum. Synovial joints. These are most common and movable joints in the body. These types of joints have a synovial cavity. Their bones are connected by dense, irregular connective tissue. Synovial joints connect bones, which are fibrous joints, capsule. The capsules constitute the outer boundary of synovial cavity are surrounded. The bone articulating surfaces, synovial cavities are filled with synovial fluid. The knee and elbows are examples of synovial joints. Functional classifications of joints are based on the type and degree of movement permitted. Lumen 2018.